Hey, check 1 2.
Hey, check 1 2.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I apologize for a slight delay on my part. I could not find my audio equipment. I found it though. Here it is. And you can hear me now. Great. So today we're going to be moving into deeper hip opening. So what I would like you to have is 2 blankets would be really good to put underneath your buttocks. And if you don't have 2 blankets, what you could do is a couch cushion, couch pillows. Blocks are fine, but they usually are not as good because they're not so soft, and they tend to put the hips to sleep a little bit because they pinch the nerve supply. And well, it's not the end of the world, but it's harder to enjoy the experience. So something soft. Hopefully you got that. Let me just make sure I'm not getting 2 videos again. I am. Okay, but I found it. Good news. I was just hearing double again. I was going to go crazy. Sorry about that. Okay, so as we continue on our conversation with the breakthrough today, the idea is we're going to go deeper into stretching our ability to externally rotate, which we started the other day with flying pigeon. And today we're not going to be focused on arm balances, but focused rather on the hip opening practices, the seated postures that require some deep hip opening and still external rotation, and how we can apply our understanding of internal rotation to external rotation. Now, what that means is we have internal rotators that turn the thigh bones in, and we learned how to use them when we did our half TT Basana, sort of flying Janu Shirshasana pose, where I told you to rotate the thigh in as you're straightening it out to the sides. And when we do Uttanasana forward fold, I always tell you to press the backs of your legs apart. This is rotating the fronts of the legs in so that the backs of the legs go apart. It's an internal rotation of the thighs. I've been teaching you how to use your abductors, the outer hip muscles, in order to create internal rotation. Now, here's where it becomes really exciting is those muscles of internal rotation, or at least that understanding of internal rotation, brings balance to our yoga postures. When we are in deep external rotation, if we try to internally rotate, what that creates is something called a facilitated stretch, or in chromatic yoga, we call that a balancing action, because it balances out what you are doing. If you activate the opposing muscles of what's happening in your body, the opposing muscles of the joint alignment, then what tends to happen in the deep in the joint is you create a spaciousness, or what's called joint congruency, that allows for the bone to move more freely in the socket in a way that keeps it integral, so keeps the bone in the socket. But what happens kind of like when you only move the bones in one direction, it kind of slides the femur head or the humerus towards one end of the joint socket and then limits your range of motion. By activating the opposing muscles, it pulls the head of the femur or the head of the arm bone or whatever joint we're talking about deeper into the socket, giving you more space for more range of motion. Now we have to develop awareness of the internal rotators to be able to activate these muscles while in external rotation. It's very hard. We'll also use our hands on our personal self adjustments in order to help us really feel that. Now, I will be honest, sometimes for a lot of you, it's going to be more it's going to feel better doing the fundamental action, which is a chromatic yoga term that I've coined as well, which is activating the muscles that are already shortened. So when you're in an external rotation, if you actively externally rotate using your muscles to try to externally rotate more, sometimes that gives more freedom. And it really depends upon your balance or imbalances in your body, what tends to be weak, what tends to be tight, what tends to be overly flexible. And so it's not like a magic cure to say the balancing action is always the way, but it tends, I would say, for 75% of the time and 75% of the people, it tends to be really opening and give greater access. So balancing action today, activating the opposing muscles of what we're doing. We're going to be externally rotating the legs, but we're going to employ the internal rotators in order to see if that creates greater range of motion. And of course, I'd love to hear your experience afterwards in the Facebook group. And thank you for everyone that's contributing there. It's nice to see and hear from you and see your practice and hear how it's developing and what the experience is like for you. It helps me to develop this program each month when you're contributing. It helps me understand where I could go and how I can better serve you. So I appreciate that. And of course, we appreciate the communal contributions. So I'd love to hear from you afterwards, after this practice, what the experience was like for you. And if it was perhaps not the way to go, then we know the next step for you is to recorrect and use more of a fundamental action to actively externally rotate while in external rotation. And that's why in chromatic yoga, we don't say there's a right or wrong way of approaching something. We try to outweigh or we try to weigh out the pros and cons, and we say, well, like, this is the benefits of this is the benefits of this, and then how does that experience play out in your physical body? And then we make a choice based on that, rather than saying there's a right and wrong way, and if it doesn't fit, then, oh, well, we try to actually, we take action, and then we observe what that action has created for us. And so that's kind of how I formed chromatic yoga, around that concept. Chromatic, the word, by the way, means spectrum. It means the spectrum of color, and art means the spectrum of sound and music. And in yoga, I've adapted that term to mean the spectrum of technique or body awareness or spectrum of life itself. We use it for various things, but in this case, for the body, regarding alignment, there's no right or wrong alignment. It just depends upon you and what is happening in your body and what is being called upon. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start right off into all fours, hands and knees, and we'll start with internally rotated legs. And the way you do that is you place your knees right underneath your hips, but your feet go wider than your knees. So your thighs are facing inward, okay? Now, with that, I'd just like you to move first at the knee joint by rolling your heels in and out, and do it slowly. And notice how when you roll your heels in or out, yes, your thighs will rotate a little bit here and there, but the majority of the movement is actually at the knee joint, which is important because we don't want to be rotating. When I say internally or externally rotate at the hip, the thigh bone, at the hip joint, we don't want to mistake that with the knee. So let's do full movement of the hip joint. So place your feet on the ground. Now take your left heel off the ground and externally rotate your thigh so it faces out, and you'll see your whole foot comes in behind. Okay, now this is external rotation of the thigh. What we did earlier was external and internal rotation at the knee joint. Now you're going to do the opposite. Turn your thigh in, your foot will go out as a result, but your thigh bone, you can see, is facing inward. Okay, then do the opposite. Bring it in, bring the foot in, that is, but the thigh bone externally rotates. You always look from the front of the thigh for when we use terms like external and internal rotation. So you internally rotate the thigh, your foot goes out. It can get confusing when your foot goes out. You think of like, oh, it must be outward rotation, but that's not the case. It's just because your foot is behind you. Okay, now let's go to the other leg just to kind of explore. Externally rotate your right thigh, and your foot will come in, of course. Now internally rotate your right thigh, and your foot will go out. Externally rotate the right thigh, foot will come in. And internally rotate the right thigh, the foot will go out. Okay, now come into internal rotation with both feet on the mat and your knees under your hips. Hands out in front and grip the fingers into the ground. Use our arm balance muscles, even though we won't be using them today. It's good to keep strengthening them for the next practice ahead, okay? With your fingers active, take an inhale, arch the back and look up. Now you're gonna take a wide-legged downward facing dog, keeping the arch in the low back and keeping the thighs internally rotated. So I'd like you to think about your inner thighs moving back. Remember that time we had the block between our legs? I don't know, it was 2 practices ago maybe, or 2 or 3 practices ago. Think about pressing the inner thighs back. I use the joke about a Pez dispenser, if you know what that is. You press the inner thighs back and it dispenses the Pez back behind you, okay? So as your inner thighs go back, press your hamstrings away from each other, and that's actually internal rotation. When the backs of your legs move apart, your fronts of your thighs turn in, internal rotation. Okay, come forward to plank pose and pause. Grip your fingers into the ground. Now let's find our inner thighs, squeeze your shins toward one another, and lift the belly and lift the chest away from the ground more. Squeeze the shins in, the front of your shins in particular, because we're talking about internal rotation, so the front of your legs in, and then place the knees down, externally rotate, your feet will come in, and come to child's pose. Well done so far. Inhale forward, all fours, tuck the toes. Exhale, feet wide, downward dog with feet wide, turn your legs in. Let's move, inhale, forward plank pose, round the back, squeeze your shins in. Exhale, knees down, toes to touch, and back to child's pose. Inhale, all fours, arch and look up. Exhale, hips up and back, press the heels apart, down dog. All right, bring the legs a little closer together, right leg to the sky, inhale. Open up your hip, bend the knee. Enjoy a full breath in. And a full breath out. Straighten the leg, inhale, square the hip. Step forward as you exhale. We take a breath and become aware of this body. Now, this month's theme of breakthroughs is all about trying to bring light into the darkness, meaning shed awareness in the parts of our body that we are unaware of, finding the things, the muscles that are weak and building strength, finding the tightnesses and building flexibility, finding the areas of our life that we are ignorant to and building awareness and knowledge about. So pull your feet toward each other, lift the hips up. And think about the internal rotation again for today. The back inner thigh lifts up to the sky. Bend your front knee a little bit more. And now I'd like you to find a little tuck of the sit bone like we did last class for the flying pigeon. Scoop your tail and press through your heel. Let's take a breath in. Today, exhale, left palm on the ground, twist, right hand to the sky. Inhale, right hand down. Exhale, twist. Inhale, right hand down. Exhale, twist. Inhale, unwind. Step to down dog as you exhale. Forward to plank pose, inhale. Exhale, child's pose, hips to heels. All fours, hands and knees. Tuck toes, down dog. Inner thighs go back. Left leg to the sky. Step forward, exhale. High up on the fingertips to start and take a breath. That first breath of every pose is a moment to realign with our intention that we're not here to perform. We're not here to already be good at something. With the breakthrough, if our intention is truly to have a breakthrough, we're trying to highlight what we do not know, what we're not aware of, and bring light into that. So that takes a bit of courage. It takes a bit of courage because it's a little bit challenging for the ego. The ego likes to know. The ego likes to already be aware of. The ego likes to think it has it all together. Okay, it's an emotional defense, emotional armor. We're not here for that with the breakthrough. We're here to grow, to expand, to change, to transform. Okay, that's the purpose. So we find our weaknesses and build strength. We find our areas of our mind and our life and our body that we're unaware of, and we build awareness. Pull your feet toward each other and lift the back inner thigh up. Place the right palm down. Take a breath in. Exhale, turn the belly, turn the heart, twist. Inhale to touch back to the ground. Exhale, twist. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Down dog. Plank pose, inhale. Child's pose, exhale. All fours, inhale. Down dog, exhale. Right leg to the sky, inhale. Step forward as you exhale. Place the back knee down. Pause. Pull your feet toward each other. Lift the hips a little bit. Lift the inner groin of the back leg up slightly. Rise up. Back knees pulling towards the front knee so you're not sagging but rising through the hips. Lift the belly, lift the heart. Turn the palms out. Inhale, lift up. Hold, exhale, lean forward a little bit. Pull your knees toward each other, lift the belly up. Hands back. Exhale, release the hands. Straighten through both legs. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, bend. Let's do it again. Inhale, straighten through both legs, look forward. Exhale, bend. One more. Inhale. Exhale, bend and step back, down dog. Left leg to the sky. Step forward. Back knee down and come to fingertips. Take a breath. We remind ourselves of this intention to grow, to transform, to become awake to where we are sleeping. And that this intention requires that we soften our ego. We soften our identity in order to form a new one. Pull your knees toward each other, lift the hips, and rise up. You do not need to be the knower, the doer, the one that has it all together, the one that's already perfect, whatever your ego tells you you need to be. We are the transformer, the one that opens, the one that is awake to all that we do not know. Lift the belly up, lift the heart up. Inhale, reach the arms up. Soften. Even better, the one that is constantly waking up to what we don't know. Inhale, lift the heart up, take the hands back. Exhale, release. As awake implies a solidity. Inhale, plank. Knees down, child's pose. But awakening is a process, a constant, and that's really what it takes to have breakthroughs. Inhale, forwards, all fours. To never believe that we are awake or done with the process. Down dog, exhale. But to be open to the constant journey. This is what revelation is all about. If we truly want that opening, the building of awareness, then it's a constant willingness to be in the unknown. Walk your feet to the front of the yoga mat. Take an inhale when you get there and lengthen the spine. Exhale and bow. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale and bow. Inhale, lengthen. Okay, pause, bend the knees a little bit. Now take your hands, crisscross them, and you take the opposite hand to the opposite inner thigh. Really where that meat of the thigh is, it kind of comes in a little bit and then it goes back out. That part where it goes back out,
A lot of people tend to be self-conscious, but that's just the musculature underneath your thighs. Okay, you're going to take your hands, press the inner thighs back in that place, okay? As you press your inner, like really move the skin back so you can get a feel for what it's like to rotate the thigh bones in. This is a self-adjustment. Now, kind of follow that movement with the backs of your legs. So the backs of your legs move apart away from one another, and you'll feel your outer buttocks engage. Okay, keeping that lean slightly forward into your toes and see if you can lift your buttocks up to the sky. Now, this doesn't mean jamming your knee back. So both knees can be slightly soft. They are straight, but they're not jamming back, like you're not overly pressing into the joints. Okay, so the inner thighs move back, the hamstrings push apart. With your hands, you can actually push your legs apart a little bit, kind of indicating to the fascia which direction you'd like them to go. Now, if you look at your knees, if your knees are turning in, see if you can soften your knees a little bit and spin the shins out slightly while the upper thighs move in. Okay, that's really hard to do, but we don't want our knees to be rotating. We want just the hip joints to be rotating. Okay, and then release your hands, place the hands to the hips and rise all the way up. Now, if you did that properly and it wasn't just your hands, you probably felt your buttock band up here activating. And that's what we're going for today. As we go deeper into the hip opening, we want to feel these muscles awakening so that when we begin to stretch them, they have more elasticity. But also, when I ask you to apply that balancing action of activating them while in an externally rotated position, that I want you to be able to have access to that. Okay, that's the awakening we're going for today. That's the breakthrough we're trying to find. Okay, let's take a moment in Tadasana. I should just quickly mention, I apologize, I missed this at the beginning. Some of you have asked about the changing the quality of the playback. So the playback should be almost crystal clear. If it's not, at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little settings button you can press, and make sure it's set to not automatic, but 720, I think is whatever the highest resolution that is there. You can raise the resolution of the video. If it's on automatic, then what happens is you're getting the feed as fast as possible, which is great, that you might be right on time with me. But the buffering doesn't happen, so you get a lower quality. So if you get the higher setting, it might push you back a few minutes or whatever, but you'll get a better quality video. So for some of you asked for that, that's the way you can do it. And what happens if your internet is a little bit slower than my internet, or my internet's slow, or the player itself, the content delivery network is slower, then it needs more time to buffer and get the resolution high. Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Inhale, reach the arms to the sky. Exhale and bow to the earth, Uttanasana. Half lift on the inhale. Right foot steps back as you exhale. Okay, place your hands on your front knee. Pause here, back inner thigh lifts. Okay, now tip your body weight forward until you're on the very tippy toes of the back foot. And when you do that, you're going to see your front knee comes in a little bit. Okay, that's lack of strength of the external rotators. So you're going to have like the opposite of what we're doing today. You're going to actually turn your thigh outward actively so the knee faces towards the pinky toe more. Keeping that, press your big toe into the ground and slide the back foot forward a little bit to lift the back leg up. Okay, so front knee turns out a little bit, or I should say, the front thigh turns out and the kneecap will look like it faces out. We're not moving the knee joint itself. Okay, now the back leg, lift the inner back thigh up to the sky. That's internal rotation, okay? Lift the back inner thigh up to the sky the best you can. Take a full breath in. Now very slowly bend the front knee. Keep leaning forward, keep leaning forward, keep leaning forward, bending the knee. Point the back foot to reach, slowly descend. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to the ground. Slow descent. Inhale, plank pose. Chaturanga. Little cobras. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the heart, lift the shoulders. Maybe lift the hands. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift the heart, lift the shoulders, lift the hands, maybe lift the feet.
Exhale, release.
All fours, hands and knees. Exhale, downward facing dog. Full breath in. Full breath out. Right leg to the sky, inhale. Step right foot forward as you exhale. Turn the back heel down. Okay, again, if you have one of those mats that have a nice line down the center like the second wind mat does, you're gonna line your front heel with the back arch, okay? Keeping that, walk the hands to the inside. You can always put a piece of tape down the center of your mat if you don't have that line. It's an option so you can kind of see it. It's really helpful to understand your body patterns. When my right leg is forward, I tend to line up with the front heel and back arch every time. When my left leg is forward, my right leg winds up back behind me more, which tells me that my right buttock muscles are tighter on the right side, and my leg tends to be back behind my pelvis more on the right than the left. Okay, that does tell me some things about my patterns that I might need to increase flexibility in my buttocks and so on. Okay, on the right side, that is. Pull your feet toward each other. Move the back inner thigh, this one, back. So that's the internal rotation. And think about lifting the back inner thigh up. Now the front hip, you're still going to rotate it out so the knee pushes out, and then bend your elbows out to the side. Hold here, press your front heel down, take a full breath in and out. So we're going to be playing with internal and external rotation now that you kind of understand both, that you've been working on both. The front leg stays with external rotation. So the front outer heel presses down and the knee presses out. And when I say knee out, it's really a movement of the thigh bone rotating out. As a result, the knee goes with it, but that's not the shin rotating out. So the shin, if you lifted your foot up, you would turn your toes out. That would be the shin rotating out at the knee joint. And that's different. We're not doing that. Okay. Walk the hands back to the center. Inhale, step forward, halfway lift, and I'd like you to take note of your right and left side. Exhale, press the inner thighs back and apart and bow forward. Inhale, rise to the sun, Urdhva Hastasana. Hands to heart, Samasthiti. Inhale, reach all the way up. Exhale, bow Uttanasana, forward fold. Half lift, inhale. Right foot back as you exhale. Hands on the front thigh, come on up and pause. The front knee, well, it's this. Front heel, press the outer heel down so you get your buttocks fired up, and big toe at the same time. So outer heel, big toe. You'll feel like a diagonal across the foot. Keeping that, lean forward. Lean forward and lift the back inner thigh up. Now drag the back foot forward until it rises up to the sky. Yeah, I'd like to flex the foot for this one and lift the back inner thigh up. Now don't be collapsing on your front thigh. Scoop your front sit bone. Use your buttocks to lift the heart up. Keep the inner back thigh lifting. Keep the chest lifting. Keep the front knee bent. Now your front thigh rotates out, so knee turns towards pinky toe. That should get your buttock band active, hopefully, okay? Knee rotates out from your external rotation at the front thigh. The back thigh bone rotates in, lifts up against that action. So they're kind of fighting one another, or AKA balancing each other out. Take a full breath in. Now, without clunky, slowly bend the front knee. Reach by pointing the back foot. Slow, then touch. Then lean back. Okay, inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to the ground. Inhale, plank pose. Exhale, lower. Inhale, hard up, cobra pose. Exhale, release. All fours, hands and knees. Tuck toes, down dog. Inner thighs back and apart. We get one full breath in. One breath out. One more. Left leg to the sky on the inhale. Step forward. Okay, back heel comes down. And again, I can tell right away that my right leg is back behind more. So I find the line with my front foot, and then I try to straddle that line with my back arch and see if I can get that alignment going. Okay, and that's really because now, it's not that alignment is divine or anything, like you can have the foot back here, but different muscles will be able to activate and different muscles will fire up. And so what alignment does is give us a consistency about what we're trying to activate. On one day, you might be back here on purpose. On another day, you might be forward here. Today, and really what we're trying to get at is just a consistency about building musculature when our bones are in a certain alignment. Okay, so that's why you always see me switch up the postures quite a bit in the alignment of them, and we do funky things, and that's for targeting certain muscles at certain times. Okay, so now the back inner thigh lifts up, front knee moves forward. They kind of work against each other. Back inner thigh back and lifts up. Front buttocks presses down into the outer heel, finding that rotation around the thigh bone into the heel bone. All right, keeping that, we take a full breath in and out. And if you're bowing here or just staying lifted, it's up to you, but make sure you're firing up your front buttocks, but keeping your back inner thigh lifted at the same time. All right, walk the hands back to the center, back heel lifted. Step forward, halfway lift, inner thighs back and apart, and acknowledge right and left side. Exhale and bow. To the sun, rise up, Urdhva Hastasana. To the heart, Samastitihi. Inhale, rise up. To the earth, bow. Half lift on the inhale. Left foot back as you exhale. High lunge, inhale, rise up. Hands to the ground, exhale. Plank pose, inhale. Chaturanga, exhale. Cobra or upward facing dog, your choice. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left leg to the sky. Sorry, right leg to the sky, my fault. Step forward as you exhale. High lunge, rise, inhale. Open warrior two. Move the seat back a little bit and pull your feet toward each other. Spin the front thigh bone externally all the way out so you're pressing the outer heel down. But in contrast, press your big toe down as well. Arms out to the sides. Rotate the back of your head to face the back of the hand. The back hand, that is. Let's do 4 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. One more. Three breaths in reverse warrior. Inhale. Hold, exhale. Front outer heel presses down, knee rotates out, or thigh rotates out, sorry. One more. All right, straighten through the front leg. Toes face out, both of them. Bend the back knee, fingertips come straight down out in front of you. Okay, modified Skandasana. Both feet are facing out. Only the left knee is bent. Keep the heart lifted. Now, The left outer heel, press it down so that your thigh bone rotates out. Your knee will wind up facing out. Now, very gently start to rotate this thigh bone. It's very externally rotated out, the straight leg. Just think about lifting the back inner thigh up a little bit away from the ground. So the straight leg, the front leg, I guess the right leg, is lifting by pressing the ball mound of your foot down. Slight internal rotation at the femur. But make sure the knee doesn't collapse in. The knee still faces out, okay? Thigh still faces out. You're just gently trying to internally rotate the straight leg. The bent knee, you're really trying to externally rotate, lift the heart up. Now think about getting lighter on your fingers by pressing down through your feet. Maybe your hands can come up. Okay, both hands down. Turn the back foot in, turn the front foot out. Take your right hand to the inside of your right foot, left hand to the hip. Back inner thigh goes back and lifts up towards the sky. Front knee tries to go forward. Thigh bone rotates out, so the knee goes out. Hold. If possible, against the front leg rotating out, start to activate your back muscles like a back bend, and then pull your left shoulder back. Option to come up onto fingertips, usually a lot more accessible for most of us, or a block, of course. Press your outer right heel down. One more breath. Release. All right. Let's face the front foot. Place both feet on that center line. Okay, so front heel and back toes are on the same line. Straighten through the front leg like you're on a balance beam. Lengthen forward and point the tailbone straight back. Exhale, gently bow to the degree that is accessible for you. Pull your ribs back, tailbone and foot faces straight back. A little rounding in the upper back. And even the neck, tuck your chin gently towards your chest. You might even feel a stretch go, feels like it goes to your brain. Two more breaths. All right, bend the front knee. Step back, downward facing dog. And we're just gonna hang out here as you feel the sensations in your right hip versus your left hip. The question is, when we're working towards breakthroughs, if we can attend to the experience, be attentive to the changes, to the shifts that we're having. Can you feel the right hip waking up? Can you feel the blood, the prana, the energy flowing through it? Lift the heels up, inhale, look forward. Empty the breath, hop or step. Half lift on the inhale. Exhale and bow. To the sunrise, Urdhva Hastasana. Inner thighs back and apart. Exhale to the heart. And inhale, rise up. To the earth bow. Half lift on the in-breath. Right foot back, exhale. Scoop your left sit bone under, press down, rise, high lunge. Exhale, right to Chaturanga. Cobra or up dog, your choice. Exhale, down dog. Left leg to the sky. Step forward. High lunge, rise. Open warrior two. Groins go back.
We start to warm up the hips. Pull your feet toward one another, activating the hamstrings, the adductors, toning the thighs. Okay. You can move your hips back and micro tuck your tailbone in order to help the front thigh bone rotate out, but don't do that at the expense of the back thigh rotating out. Keep the back inner thigh lifting, back hamstrings lifting up to the sky. Okay. Now lift the belly, take the arms out to the side. Turn the back of your head to face the back hand. Front knee is still bent and it's rotating out. The thigh bone is externally rotating. As a result, the knee turns out or faces out. Okay, and we stay here for 4 more breaths. And the breakthrough is all about finding what we are unaware of and building awareness in that area of our body, that area of our life, the mind. And that includes when we feel a weakness, to shed strength on that weakness, to build it up. If you can make your weaknesses your strengths, there'll be major breakthroughs in the physical body and in life. Reverse warrior for 3 breaths. Inhale. Hold, exhale. One more. Coming on out. All right, we turn both toes 45 degrees, more or less. Bend the right knee and take your fingertips to the ground. Okay, the right leg, which is the bent knee, rotates out. Thigh bone rotates out, pressing the outer heel down. The back inner thigh lifts up through that internal rotation. You hold that, keep the chest lifted. Okay, and then slowly, as you're holding this position, you'll notice that your right knee starts collapsing in. See if you can activate the fundamental action of externally rotating the thigh. Okay, the back, or the straight leg, I should say, is trying to do a balancing action. It is currently externally rotated. So what you try to do is internally rotate it, not at the knee joint, but all the way up at the hip joint where the femur is. Think about the inner groins moving back and the buttocks lifting up slightly in the straight leg. Then pressing your feet downward and getting lighter in the hands. Still working on that. Front knee rotates out or thigh rotates out. Lifting the heart, and maybe the hands can come up off the ground if you can keep those things without jamming in the straight knee, without collapsing in the bent knee. All right, hands to the ground. Pivot the back or the right leg inward, left leg outward. Bend the left knee. Okay, maybe plant the left palm today. And again, steer the ship. The tailbone steers straight to the side wall or to the side of the mat. Okay, that's going to help the back thigh internally rotate a little bit, but it makes the front leg work harder. So you're going to press your outer left heel down, externally rotating. Right hand comes to the hip. Turn the belly, turn the chest. Use your back muscles to help you turn. Again, you have the option to be on fingertips or a block. Right hand to the sky. Don't lose the external rotation of the front hip, and don't lose the activation of the back leg, lifting the back inner thigh up. We'll do one more breath. And release. Okay, again, feet on the same line, like a balance beam. Inhale, lift the heart. Move the front inner thigh back slightly as you bow. Let's enjoy a couple of breaths here.
All right. Bend and step back, down dog. Take a moment here to observe the energy of the left and the right hip. Observation of actions is huge when it comes to breakthroughs. When we're seeking the revelation, when we're seeking the breakthrough, anugraha, oftentimes we take actions. And then instead of identifying which actions are having which outcomes, we start identifying ourselves with the results of our actions. So instead of observing and acknowledging that this action produced this outcome, we start saying, I produced that outcome. Now that becomes a problem for the ego, all in all, because if the outcome is not what we want, then we feel like we are a failure. If it is what we want, then we feel that we are the success, right? And either way, it has an issue. The ego wraps around that, and that's where identity becomes a bit of an issue. And we become a little more egotistical one way or the other, and either way is good. The idea here is if we acknowledge that our actions produce outcomes, not we are the ones that take action, but the actions themselves are what produces outcomes. So if the outcome doesn't come out the way that we wanted, then all that's left is not to change ourselves, but to change the actions we're taking. We become more effective, whether it's practicing asana or a regular life. Lift the heels up, look forward. Empty the breath, hopper step. Halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale and bow. All right, hands to the knees, bend the knees and rise up. I just noticed what you should be feeling, hopefully as we're going through these activations and these postures, is that your legs become heavier and heavier. And I just noticed when I jumped forward, I was like, whoa, the weight is coming down. We're becoming more earth, more water, more grounded, okay, as we get into these hip openers. And that is normal. So you might need to, after this practice, sit with a cup of tea and just chill out and let yourself rejuvenate and not, try to get up and go if it's possible for you. Otherwise, I recommend a little bit longer of a shavasana to rejuvenate. All right, so take your hands, crisscross them. Place the hands, your upper inner thighs, again, where the musculature bulges out a little bit, and press your inner thighs back, sit low. Now, I want to find that the kneecaps face straight forward, but at the same time, the upper inner thighs move back and away from each other in the backside. And if you do that, it's like pressing your heels out, and you'll feel your outer hips engage. Okay, so the inner thighs go back, the back of the hamstrings push apart, the abductors, the buttock muscles engage, sit low. Okay, the muscles that internally rotate the hips are outer buttocks and inner thighs. They combine with one another to internally rotate the hips. Okay, when I say kneecaps stay straight forward, it forces you to turn on your external rotators against the internal rotators. That's brilliant because what that does is it strengthens the muscles against one another. Okay, so you don't necessarily need body weight or external weight in order to strengthen. You work muscle against muscle, and they build strength against one another in balance with each other, which is wonderful. Okay, now lift the heart up, use your back muscles, reach the arms up. Let's do a full breath in, full breath out. You should be in a back bend. 2 more, inhale. 1 more. Slowly stand up. All right, this next one's a bit tough. We're gonna tip the pelvis forward, like so, and then we're, you know what, actually come to the ground for a second, lay on your back, and I'll show you what it's like on your back. Okay, take your left leg up into the sky, and very slowly spin the left thigh bone out, so the kneecap and the toes will face out, not because the shin is rotating or the ankle's rotating, so you're not moving your ankle. It's hard to move your shin when it's straight anyway. But when you rotate the thigh bone, as a result, because the leg is attached to itself, the knee and the toes will face out. Okay, so that's external rotation. Try to go a little bit further than you think you can go. Okay, then do the opposite. Slowly turn in. And again, see how far you can turn the left leg in. Now the right leg, the one that's on the ground, keep that slightly turned in or neutral so your big toe faces straight up.
and keep turning the left leg in. Okay, now release. Now this position that I'm showing you right now is what we're gonna do, but this leg, the upper leg, take the right leg to the sky, will be on the ground and our torso won't be on the ground instead. So the foot will be on the ground. Imagine the floor is on your foot right now and you're turning the floor with your foot. This is what we're gonna be doing, okay, upside down from this position, exactly the opposite. So our foot will be on the ground and we'll externally rotate our leg. And as a result, instead of our body being still, because right now it's on the ground, the foot will remain still and we will move, our torso will move. So now turn the opposite way, turn the leg all the way in, like so, as much as you can, without moving the ankle joint if possible. Okay, so it's just your thigh bone that rotates in the hip socket, and then do the opposite, externally rotate all the way as much as you can. And then check in with your other leg, make sure it is facing straight up to the sky as well. Okay, so now what we'll do is we're gonna come up to stand. Everybody, let's come on up and do the exact same pose. Excuse me, I have to restart my player. Okay, now it's going. We're gonna do the exact same pose, but instead of, I'll show you, okay? So you'll take your hands to your hips for this one, and we'll internally rotate, which will turn our whole torso around the thigh, and then we'll externally rotate. It's the bottom leg that's rotating, okay? Now this tends to be a little bit strenuous on the knee for a lot of people because they tend to rotate at the knee joint instead of the hip. So what I'm gonna suggest is your bottom leg, maybe I'll strongly suggest or say, please do bend the bottom leg a little bit, and this gives your knee joint a little more play as you rotate the pelvis around the hip joint. Now, as you're rotating, you want your knee to keep staying straight forward with the toes. You don't want your kneecap to be wibble wobbling in and out, okay? So let's give it a shot. We'll start on our right leg. For many of you, that's your non-dominant leg, so it'll be harder on the right leg. For me, it's my dominant leg. So you bend your right leg and come into a parallel to the floor position with your torso. Now you turn the right leg out, your knee rotates out a little bit, and your torso spins inward. Okay, then you turn the leg in, and your torso is gonna spin towards the pinky toe. Your head faces towards the pinky toe. Keep going a little bit more. It's okay if you fall 10,000 times. I'm sure I will. Okay, spin the other way. Move slowly so you can focus on your knee staying straight forward. Or I think about it going slightly towards pinky toe the whole time, okay, as you rotate. If you're doing this slow enough, if you're doing it fast, it's easy. If you're doing it slow enough and controlling the winding and unwinding, you're gonna feel deep in your right buttocks. Whoo, get super tired. All right, and come on up. Holy, good God. Excuse me. Okay, so now here's the thing. When you're doing this, you shouldn't be side bending at your waistline. From your head to your other foot, to your back foot, the top foot, should be one solid piece. Just like on the ground, you didn't side bend your torso. In the air, you don't side bend your torso. You just move your pelvis around the femur bone. Everything else doesn't change. The bottom leg doesn't change, and the rest of your body doesn't change. Your pelvis is swiveling, and because your torso and leg are attached to the pelvis, they rotate as well. Okay, so I need a moment to breathe. Hard to speak and do this at the same time, I'll be honest. Okay, second side, hands onto the front thigh. Right leg goes back and up behind us. Now 3 times, spin the thigh bone out, your torso will go in. Spin the thigh bone in, knee still faces out, torso will face towards pinky toe. It's okay to fall, so I'm almost falling here as well. You just get back up and you slowly continue moving. Try to control the movements, very slow. I notice on my weaker side, I'm going a little bit faster, so I'm going to slow it down. My weaker side wants to get it over with. Got to remind it that in order to have a breakthrough, it's got to be willing to face the challenges. All right. And so what I noticed on the left side, my weaker side, is that the movements tend to be more stop and go, less smooth around the hip. And what that is the muscles on my left side are either like contract or release, contract or release. They have, they struggle with this contracting and slow lengthening as they're contracting, and then slow shortening as they're contracting. They're kind of just like, go or stop. They're 100% or not. And that tells me, and I already know this, but it tells me that my left hip is less developed, less, I would say, aware, there's less neurological connections between even thought to brain stimulation down to the neurons. And yes, I can turn it on and I can turn it off, but I cannot necessarily sustain that contraction through range of motion. So the health of the muscles aren't as developed as the right side. So you might find that as well. And you might do the exercise later and come back to it and see if you can go smoothly in that little helicopter drill on one side and maybe the other. And also good to film yourself doing it and see how much range of motion you have. Do you have the same range of motion on each side? Are you falling on one side or not the other? You know what I mean? So this is really good, informative work. All right, so let's get your blanket. You should be pretty awake in your buttocks. I don't have a blanket today, so I'm going to use one of my second wind mats over here because I'm grateful that they sent me a bunch. So first things first, let's just understand a little bit about the hip joints. So you're going to start with Sukhasana, aka easy seat. I'm going to move the camera closer for now. Since you don't need, I'm not going to be standing up. Okay, Sukhasana, easy seat to begin. This is essentially like, the one leg of pigeon pose, more or less. And to increase, we're going to just use our hands for a second, okay? So this is really about showing you hands-on adjustments. And I still can bring this a little closer, can't I? So you can see better. Because we're about to go into pigeon pose, and I want you to know what to do here. So if you experience knee pain in pigeon pose, more often than not, it's best to actually go with the fundamental action, which is externally rotating the thigh. Because what happens in this posture is the thigh doesn't rotate enough, and then the knee joint compresses here on the inside. So in this case, your self-adjustment will be one thumb kind of sneaks in here and rotates the skin. There's like the meat of the quads here. You rotate it out like this, okay? And that external rotation of the thigh, the fascia might release the knee, okay? So for those of you that have any knee pain in pigeon, you're probably gonna go with that route, okay? And really focus on pressing the outer knee down. Now today I'm gonna introduce you another concept, which is the opposite. Just like we did in the beginning, press your inner thighs. You lean to your don't mirror me, go the other way. Go to your right and move the skin of the upper thigh apart, like press the skin down and out. And this will be an internal rotation of the thigh bone. And it's hard to get a good grip on that. So you really kind of have to get on the inside of your thigh here and push it down and out, okay? Now, it doesn't really do much in Sukhasana, but in pigeon it will when you lean your torso. Same thing with the other side. Kind of get
you have to sort of get your forearm perpendicular to the thigh bone and press it down and out. Again, it doesn't really do much here in this Sukhasana, but I just want to show you what the assist looks like because you're about to do it in pigeon pose, okay? Again, if you're got knee issues, you take your thumb and you peel the skin of really grab on there and peel the skin of your thigh and rotate out. And that usually towards the knee is where I find it gives the most relief. Otherwise, we're going up towards the inner groin and pressing inwards. So we're doing a balancing action is what I'm suggesting. Unless you have knee pain, you're doing a fundamental action, which means you're going in the same direction that we're already in. Okay, so let's get in pigeon pose. Take your right shin across the mat. And the back toes, the back thigh bone turns in. So I tuck the toes in order to help me turn my back thigh bone in. That's already a stretch. And instead of leaning forward, you go back, okay? Now, right hand, again, if you have knee pain already, press your outer knee down, lift your hips up, and press your knee out to the side. I like to push like this. So I'm going to change directions a little bit so you can see. I like to, here we go, push the knee out, down and out like that. That might be a really nice stretch for you. I'm going to show you another one today, okay? The inner rotation could also be extremely nice. So you take your right hand here, and you take your left hand to your inner thigh, and you lean your left shoulder towards the ground as you press the inner thigh out to the side. And it really requires a lot of effort to kind of do that. And that will increase the stretch of the right hip undoubtedly if you do that as well. Okay, so the inner thigh pressing down and out. Now what you can do is think about actively internally rotating your right thigh, but not at the knee or anything like that. Just your upper right thigh, turn it in like you're doing Uttanasana or like you're doing down dog. Inner thighs go down towards the ground and then the hamstrings push out away. Okay, and the back side. The back leg's turning in as well, actively. Okay, leaning away from the thigh. And this hand is really helping you push, right? If you're doing the other one, then you're pushing here like this with the left hand on the ground. It's a little different stretch altogether. Okay, let's switch sides. I'm going to be on a diagonal so that you can see. Okay, you can come through down dog if you like. Okay, so again, if you're doing the external rotation, which is the fundamental action, your right forearm goes down and your left hand pulls that skin up and then pushes the knee out. Okay, if you've got knee issues, that tends to be really nice. If you want to go deeper in the hip stretch, left hand to the center, right hand pushes the skin of your thigh out to the side. Your back thigh turns in and presses out. Sometimes you have to kind of work through and figure out, turn your pelvis slightly and figure out where the action is. And then, actively turning your thigh bone in, which is hard. That's why I give you all those kind of drills to think about inner thighs go back. Think about warrior two, the back leg kind of lifting up. The back hamstrings lifting up. The back hamstrings in this case are on the ground. Push them out to the side. Lift them up a little bit and push them out to the side. And if anything doesn't feel good, do the opposite. Do the fundamental action. Press the thigh bone externally and see if that does it for you. Seems to be, just really depends on the patterns of your body, which one feels best. And it changes for me over time. Once upon a time it was this, the other time it was that, and back and forth depending on my patterns. All right, come on out. Okie doke. So now, same posture, but double pigeon. So I recommend a couple blankets underneath your buttocks. It'll make your life a lot easier. Take your right ankle. I guess I'll start with the yoga mat for myself here too. You can see as a result, if I'm down here, the knee pops up quite a bit. Result of the pectineus or the hip flexors there, the adductors. But if you come on up, it gives you a little more access. Now, a lot of people try to do this pose and they take the stretch at the ankle. So
That's why I say put the ankle, the foot should be free off of your leg, okay? So that you're not really seeing how flexible your ankle is. It doesn't really matter, right? And that will show you where your hip actually is. Now, you push down and you stick your bum back behind you like more anterior tilt. And that should already start a little bit of a difference. Then, if you've got any knee pain, you can work the skin near the knee out. Otherwise, you can even try to do that, but lean to your left. I'm not mirroring you. And press the hamstring and inner thigh down and apart out that way as you lean forward a little bit, okay? And that should get your awareness of your internal rotation while you're in external rotation. And then see if you can activate, intentionally press your inner thigh out, down and out, as if you're doing Uttanasana, like pressing the backs of your hamstrings apart, right? Press your back of your buttocks apart here. Okay, come on up and switch sides. I'm being kind today. Lift your bum up, stick your groins back. Again, if there's knee issues, there you go. Make sure your foot is free over here. Lean and press the inner thigh down and apart. And really the hand doesn't do much other than indicate which direction you want to try to think about moving your femur bone. I'd like you to think about moving the femur bone, the back of the hamstrings here, press them apart, press the hamstrings. You can even use your hand under your buttocks to do another version of that, to pull your butt out to the side, okay? And as if you're doing chair pose, where I always say press the heels out, press the hamstrings apart, or as if you're doing Uttanasana, where I say press the backs of the legs apart. That's what you're really trying to do here in this pose, to activate your abductors and your adductors to do that spiral of the thigh bone inward against the external rotation. And what happens for a lot of people as they do that is a little more space in the joint occurs, and then you'll see your knee starts to go down as a result. This is another way of doing it too. I take the same hand and press down and out. And you see my left foot, the top foot, stays hooked so that I don't lose that. Okay, we switch sides again. Lift the hips up, stick your bum back. Okay, now I'm starting to get somewhere here with the pose. Okay, let's go side stretch. Not so much for the side stretch, but for the stretch of the hip. Come on over here. Come on up. Okay. Now, again, lift your hips up, stick your bum back, and press your, I kind of like this version. I haven't really done this much. Press the thigh down and out from underneath. Again, internal rotation. But now this time you're going to bow towards your foot that's on top. Okay. You could keep the hand there, supporting that, pressing down and out. Think about your hamstrings pressing apart from one another. Hopefully you showered today, otherwise that foot's going to be stinky. All right, coming up. Switch. Hips up and back. And we do the side stretch. Okay, so now again, either hand, I guess, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. The inner thigh presses down and out, and you bow towards your foot. And you try to push your hamstrings and buttocks apart.
Come on up.
All right.